Hi, everyone. It's Jessica Drummond here. How is everyone? Jump in, you can type in the question or chat box your name, where you're coming from, what you hope to get out of this webinar. Glad to see lots of people hopping on the call here. Excellent. Good morning, good afternoon. Yes, I know we have different time zones. Great. So jump in and introduce yourself. And let me introduce myself while you're taking a moment to type and say hello and get situated. So first of all, can everyone hear me and see the slides? Can you raise your hand if you can hear me and see the slides, or type something in our little chat box? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Asesna, thank you. Thank you, Kate. Excellent. Okay. So we're going to get started this afternoon. On this rainy afternoon, I'm coming to you from Connecticut, near the beach, just about an hour and a half outside of New York City. And we're going to be talking today about the importance of specialization, why I specifically decided to choose to specialize in women's health. And I really did that, nearly 15 years ago now. And I also, want to distinguish between separate the two terms specialization as compared with niche market, which is a marketing term that you'll hear from a lot of business professionals, coaching, and professional coaches that are helping you to organize your practice. So again, my name is Jessica Drummond. I'm the founder and the CEO of the Integrative Women's Health Institute, where we educate health and wellness professionals on women's health. So obviously that's where I specialize. And we look at women's health through a lens of health coaching, strategies and tools, and also we use other lifestyle medicine, specifically functional nutrition. So that's using nutrition from a functional medicine perspective. And that's the kinds of courses that we offer in a wide variety of topics. So that's my background. I came to found this training organization about two and a half years ago now. And I've been in practice in women's health since 2000, first as a physical therapist, then in about 2009, beginning as a practicing health coach and functional nutritionist. So I'll give you a bit more of the story about how my practice evolved through the course of this webinar. All right, so let's see. Hi, good to see everyone. Good morning. Good morning, Tiana. Good morning. I think it's Rainy. Hope I'm saying your name right. Good morning and good afternoon. All right, well, let's get started because I know everyone has busy schedules and we want to get to the meat of this material. So I often hear from my students, they struggle with specialization. They struggle with getting really clear on both their specialization and their niche market. And one of the reasons for that is, health and wellness professionals, I find, are very naturally curious and interested people. And we're just really curious and we want to know it all. And that's the nature of science to some degree. You make a discovery, you put something into practice in the real world, you learn something else, then you have to continue to learn and discover. And so, it's like a never-ending thread of discovery, which keeps us curious and makes it hard for us to drill down and just stay very focused in one area for a long period of time. We're easily distracted because we just are intelligent, curious people. Now, this question I get all the time is being a specialist the same thing as having a niche market? And the simple answer is no. And in a moment, we're going to get into why. Then the final question that comes up around this topic very consistently is, what specifically is the right specialty for me? If I am going to drill down, if I am going to get very focused, how do I make the choice about what I'm going to specialize in? So again, back to that feeling of, I just want to know it all. The more I learn, the more I feel like I don't know and I have to keep learning. And, I hear this all the time. I'm not yet an expert in that, or I'm not an expert. When will I be an expert? I need to keep learning. I'm not ready to specialize because I'm not an expert. And the other issue, as I said, is it's really hard to focus when we are able to see things. And wellness professionals are particularly good at this. We don't really look at symptoms. We don't isolate things. We see a very large global picture. We see how contaminated water might be contributing to your headaches, might be making it harder to sleep, which might be throwing your hormones out of balance, and there's all of these different things that we follow through these never-ending trails of what's next, what else can I discover? And it's hard to take a global perspective and apply it in one specialty area. But I am going to show you a bit how to do that, because ultimately specialization allows you to see things very broadly, but to remain focused on one particular topic. So what works well, both in becoming a specialist and in defining your niche market, which again, I'll explain more in a moment, is to start narrow, start small, and allow for the possibility of growth as your practice, as your skills expand. When you begin with a very narrow specialty, you can be very focused on specifically what you need to learn, what education courses to take, which clients to begin to practice with, which of your family members to practice which books to read, what kinds of things you're going to really dig into, which articles, which experts are you going to learn from, when you get focused on one small specialty area first. Additionally, you can begin to essentially surround yourself with a professional web of support. So you'll surround yourself with teachers, with authors of the books you want to read, but also with referral sources or people that are skilled around your topic, but not in exactly the same way that you might be. So, and I'll give you some examples for this in a moment. But, when we are very focused in one area and we grow our skills in one area, then it becomes simpler to figure out what other members of the professional healing team our clients may need to work with. So we can develop, excuse me a second, just grabbing a bit of water. We can develop professional networks around areas of our skill development that either we just haven't gotten to yet. We may eventually understand these things, but it's just not where we are in our professional development yet, or it's just not really something we want to learn or go to school for or study. And then, so that helps you to build your professional net of both educators and mentors, but also collaborative professionals that can help support you to take care of a specific kind of client or patient. And it's so much easier when you stay very narrow, because the answers to those questions of what books to read, what courses to take, which mentors to collaborate with, which referral partners to collaborate with, are much simpler because you're staying very narrowly focused. And again, I'll give you some examples in a moment. This focus is so essential. When we don't focus, honestly, what I see happening over and over and over with my students and my colleagues is that just nothing gets done. There is always so much more to learn that we keep learning, and we become paralyzed to actually utilize the skills that we're learning in real life. And the other thing that I always tell my students and clients is that when you decide to become a specialist in a particular area, you really want to commit to that area for about a minimum of 5 years. That's the time it takes to really dig into that subject, to have practice in the real world, to have some experiences yourself, to take the numbers of courses and read the numbers of books that you need to feel grounded in your ability to be a specialist. Now, it doesn't mean you don't do anything for 5 years except study. That's not at all what that means. It actually means to practice and be a living laboratory with your clients, with yourself, with the evolution of your professional development. So committing to 5 years, give or take, is important. And that is really challenging for some people because we are so curious. But I guarantee you that that is the path to eventually being able to grow and move in different directions, expand, and not be quite so narrow. But you have to commit to that first step for a while. So how can you choose your specialty? The answer to this question is really quite simple. And you want to turn this question on yourself and ask yourself, what is the one subject that I am so interested in that I could read about it, learn, go to every course I see offered, work with specific clients who are struggling with this challenge, and explore it for a minimum of 5 years? So let's say you kind of, first take your first education course in becoming a health coach or a nutrition professional. And you leave that introductory program with lots of knowledge about, there are things we can do to help diabetes. There are some things we can do to help with stress. There are things we can do to help with women who are recovering from breast cancer. I know more about how to feed babies when they're first weaning off of breast milk or formula and are trying to, start on a solid food plan. And you're like, oh yeah, that sounds fun. And that sounds fun. And I could do that too, right? Type in the chat box if that's something that's ever gone through your head, or just raise your hand. I think that's really common. You're like, yeah, I could do that. You get introduced to everything. Yep. I see a lot of hands going up here. You get introduced to everything in your training programs. And then you're like, well, that sounds fun. And I don't want to not do that. But what if you decided, okay, I am going to work with women who are recovering from breast cancer treatment and who are maybe either in the midst of or through their breast cancer treatment and are doing everything they can to prevent recurrence. So that makes it a lot easier for you to get focused on what to learn and which clients to work with and which physicians and other professionals to get to know, right? So if you are going to sort of work with any client that walks through your door, it's hard to become a specialist. You may know enough to help everyone. You can do a little bit with diabetes. Okay, let's try a little bit of a lower sugar diet. Okay, here's how you make pureed baby food. You can certainly be a generalist. That kind of professional is valuable in certain circumstances. Maybe you're one of the very few health coaches or nutrition professionals within, a 200-mile radius. Well, it may be really valuable for you to be a generalist, to know a little bit about a lot of different things and just kind of get people started and then send them off to people who have specialized in that area. You can do that, but you will only be able to learn so much about all of those different things. Whereas if you are just very interested in cancer, how it works, what treatments are available, what medications are available, how well they work, how much research is behind them, what herbs perhaps have been studied in cancer, in fighting cancer, what kinds of women are diagnosed with cancer? Are they all under a certain amount of stress? Do they have certain genetic predispositions? Are they of a certain age? Does this kind of cancer run in families? Does that kind of cancer not run in families? Are there 5 or 6, cancer gurus in natural medicine or in preventative medicine or in, chemotherapy development that you could go to conferences and learn from? If you stay very, very focused, you can read many, many, many of the books on the topic. You can go to many of the conferences on the topic. You can go to many of the continuing education courses on the topic. You can work with clients and learn from them and their unique experiences. And that's what makes you a specialist. You have developed a depth of knowledge, not a breadth of knowledge. So you don't know very much at all about what to feed a 1-year-old baby, other than maybe you're a mom and you fed your own kids and that went pretty well. Okay, that's great. That's useful knowledge. But you haven't necessarily studied that to the depth that you did, the kinds of wellness and lifestyle medicine techniques, nutrition, sleep, genetics, interactions with drugs, the whole 9 yards that you have spent the time and dedicated to really building a depth of knowledge for a certain kind of challenge that someone who might be going through is walking through your door. Plus, over time, over that 5 years, you will have worked with a couple of hundred women who have experienced breast cancer. You'll learn about the emotional challenges, the spiritual challenges, the interpersonal relationship challenges, the challenges with, trying to work and having breast cancer. So as you develop that body of both experience and wisdom, you know what to say yes to when you're offered an opportunity to study or when a patient walks through the door. And you'll also know what to say no to for the next 5 years. You're not going to go to a course on infant feeding, infant nutrition. You're not going to go to a course on, male cardiovascular health, right? And that saves you a lot of time because, when we are committed to being really excellent health and wellness professionals, we care a lot about our clients. We care a lot about building our depth of knowledge. And sometimes that can take away from our actual lives, from our downtime, from our self-care, from our connections with our families, because we're constantly saying yes, yes, yes. And this focus allows you to sometimes say no. So that brings me to the story of why I personally said no to becoming a neurophysical therapy expert. So if you aren't too familiar with my work, I began my healthcare professional life as a physical therapist. And when I was in graduate school, I loved the neuro classes. I loved the neuroscience classes. I liked my neuroscience professor a lot. In fact, I've remained friends with him off and on, see him every 5 years or so at various conferences or whatever. And did some research that was actually published in that area in a peer-reviewed journal, and just was very interested in the topic. But then I went out in physical therapy school and graduate school, you spend about a year doing internships actually in different facilities, working with different kinds of patients. And one of my internships was at a rehab hospital. And a lot of the patients there had suffered from traumatic brain injury. And we were doing rehab therapy, getting them, back up walking and better functioning in society. And that was incredibly difficult work. So again, if you don't know me in real life, you may have only heard my voice or, seen some of my posts and writing. I'm a small person. I weigh about 105 pounds. I'm like 5'3". And so rehab, neurologic physical therapy, working with patients with traumatic brain injuries is very demanding physical work. It's great. And there are many parts of it that I really enjoyed, but I simply did not enjoy working with patients who had struggled with traumatic brain injury, not because I didn't like them, but because it was just very physically challenging to me. And I ended up, so that was in my third year of graduate school, and then I ended up working in an outpatient orthopedic facility and worked with a lot of athletes, and that was great. I enjoyed that. But my heart just absolutely fell in love with working with women's health clients. And these were women with breast cancer recovery, women with issues and challenges related to their pregnancy and delivery and birth, challenges with pelvic pain, pelvic floor issues, other things very specifically related to women's gynecologic and hormonal and breast health. And certainly pregnancy, postpartum, menopause, all of that through the lifespan. And I adored working with those women. And so it was very easy for me to make the decision to, over the last 15 years or so, 14 years, be very focused. When I go to conferences, even if that's an option, I very rarely would go to a neurology or post-brain injury or post-stroke kind of course. That is not where my heart is. That is not where most of my interest is. I have the opportunity. I certainly could learn that at any time. And I like the science behind it. That's fascinating. But I didn't love the whole picture. Whereas with women's health, I love the science. It applies to my real life very commonly. First of all, I'm a woman. Secondly, I have 2 young daughters. And I also, have lots of women friends, and I love working with women, patients, and clients. So that's why you can really be interested in certain things, but it's not the thing that you might commit to for the next 5 years because you love essentially everything about it, the practical, the science, the other colleagues in your industry. I love, so many of the women colleagues that I work with in women's health. So take a really wide lens when you're thinking about what you want to become an expert in, a specialist, because this is kind of the professional world that you will be immersed in for a while. All right. So the next step is really to just own being a professional being a specialist. And this is simple, but not easy, as many things are. So the first thing is to simply decide that you are going to be a professional in this industry. And health coaching, that's a little hard. There are no barriers to entry. Anyone can basically be a health coach. But thankfully, we now have the NCCHWC, which we'll obviously talk about next week in our final webinar. And that's establishing some professional specifics around what the profession of health coaching is. We are soon going to have a national certification exam. There's credentialing for the training programs. But whether you have all of that or not, how you step into your profession as a health coach, even if there is not a clear designed scope of practice, and this is the same thing with nutrition. Every state's practice act is different. It's hard to specifically define this when we're looking outside of ourselves. But if you bring it from the inside, you show up as a professional owning where you stand on the continuum of health and wellness professionals. Then, so you treat your practice professionally. You're not just sort of sticking it in the corners of your life, right? You've created space, you've put it on your schedule, you've got an office or a place in your home. You've got you're treating your clients' files with respect, and you're just really stepping into being a professional in this health and wellness field. Then you want to, as you choose that topic, learn from a wide variety of credible sources, not just one source, because every source brings their own bias to their education, to your education. So when I graduated from graduate school, I went to Emory, graduated in 1999 with my physical therapist degree. And since then, every year I've taken several hours of continuing education from a whole bunch of different other clinicians and educators, different from, maybe the 10 or 12 teachers that I had in graduate school. That's not enough. You have to learn from a lot of different people so that you can begin to develop your own practice perspective. Get credentials. I think it's really important. If you're going to own being a specialist, you probably want to go to a credentialed health coach certification program. If you are owning being a professional health coach, go to a program where you can sit for the national credentialing exam. You also want to then, now you're in year 3, 4, 5, you want to begin to question if you see something that's not working well in your clients that you've learned in your continuing education, professional education, you're reading it in the research and it's just not matching up. And this is why you have to be practicing all the time, but it's not matching up with the results that your clients are getting. So you might want to question, is there something about what are particular ideas about treating whatever it is that you're going to be treating or supporting, and begin to innovate. And again, practice professionally, carve out time, be professional, be ethical, and take care of your clients in a very professional way. Now, so being a specialist is about you. It's about all of these, decisions that you make, your education, how you practice, how you show up in the world. Your niche market is not about you. Your niche, so first of all, your niche market is a marketing term, and it is about who you want to serve. It is about your clients, what you will help them with, right? So if you are a specialist, you're continuously dedicating your time, your financial resources, and your energy towards growing your skills in a specific area because you want to serve your clients as professionally and as well as you can. And that just takes lifelong learning. I mean, you've just got to commit to that. Now, who you serve with those skills, why you serve them, what you do to help them, what you're helping them with, is your niche market. So you want to look at everything when you're thinking niche market from the perspective of the client who's going to be walking through your door. So again, you can be a specialist. So maybe you're a specialist in natural fertility. Maybe you're a specialist in menopausal fitness and nutrition. Maybe you're a specialist in using nutrition to support cancer treatment and recovery. Maybe you decide to be a specialist in nutrition for high-performing female athletes of childbearing age. See how those are very narrow, but you can learn a ton about any of those particular areas. Now, on the other hand, your niche market is about about your client. You may be serving women. So when someone says, what do you do? I serve women who desire to become pregnant naturally, who struggle with nutrient deficiencies, excess stress, and adrenal dysregulation. So these are the women that you serve with your specialist skills. Your specialist skills might be in yoga therapy or reproductive endocrinology or nutrition or health coaching. See how being a specialist is about the skills you have. The niche market is who are you going to help and to do what? You might be serving women over 45 who desire to compete in local competitive events like triathlons or swimming or running races. You might decide that you want to serve women with breast cancer, help them to eat foods that will enhance the effectiveness of their traditional treatments and restore her energy, sexual function, and strength when she's in recovery. So again, as an example, if you want to become a natural fertility specialist, you might develop skills in the fertility awareness method, behavior change theory, movement and mindfulness to support adrenal health, nutrition to optimize the perinatal microbiome and restore nutrient deficiencies after common medications that were seen in this population, like birth control pills or antidepressants. So you'll also be really clear on who you'll be collaborating with. Reproductive endocrinologists, obstetricians, physical therapists with visceral manual therapy skills, couples therapists, relationship coaches, perinatal yoga and fitness instructors, personal chefs, and so forth. So you are just going to put yourself in the center of a web of both knowledge and mentors and collaborators that are going to help you better serve your niche market. So at the end of the day, you need both First, you have to decide to focus your skill development and network building in one area. And as I said, I recommend that you aim for 5 years of focus to start. And then you can certainly expand your services, get curious about other things, and that will flow naturally once you've spent enough time in one area to have questions. And secondly, you need a niche, and that is going to help your practice be successful. So your practice growth will be enhanced by speaking with the women whose needs you can best serve and with whom you enjoy working. This is a long-term commitment to the women you're serving. You want to be building a practice, building referral sources, giving, regular webinars or talks in your area. And, you want your community to trust that you're going to be there, that, not in 2 years, you're going to quit and work with, dog nutrition. Like you build trust with your niche market by staying focused on them over the long term, and they will see that your skills develop. And as an example of this, I started working in functional nutrition for women's health about 6-7 years ago now. And a few years ago, a physician colleague of mine interviewed me, I guess, or we were introduced. I think I was on her podcast or something like that. And we were talking about functional nutrition for chronic pelvic pain, which is really where I specifically started in women's health. And, she really appreciated my perspective. It was an interesting interview. Yes, as I'm remembering specifically, it was like a professional development kind of interview for a supplement company. And she liked it. It was great. And then she interviewed me again about 4 years later. And she really was like, wow, in 4 years, you've learned so much. Your perspective has developed. You've got so many more cases that you've applied this perspective and this method to. And now we can have increasing confidence that really that using functional nutrition with patients with chronic pelvic pain is a good thing to consider. And, maybe we can start doing research now in this area. But I had worked on that for, 6-7 years by the time I talked to her the second time. And because of that second interview, and she had really watched my skills develop over that long term, she recommended me to speak at a large international conference, which she never would have done, my second year in, because I was just learning and I was, barely getting a grasp of the specialty. So as you commit, people respect that and they begin to trust you more, and you deserve that trust more because you put in the time and the effort. So the bottom line reason that I chose women's health is that I just simply enjoy working with women patients and clients with specific women's health needs: pelvic pain, perinatal challenges, perimenopausal challenges, female cancers, and women athletes. And I've enjoyed doing this for roughly, 14, 15, 16 years when I began to develop my skills in this area. I specialized in women's health probably in 2001, and my first couple years out of school, I was exploring different areas and learning what I did not like, right? So putting in that time is so important. That's the only way to become a specialist. Even if you have experience, let's say you want to be a specialist in breast cancer and you've actually experienced breast cancer, you still can't be a specialist without putting in this professional development time, because you only have your experience to draw on. And while that's extremely valuable, everyone's experience is different, and you need to see 100, 200, 500, 1,000 experiences before you really get a better perspective on any one individual's experience. And that, again, serves your clients better. So I just love this population. And another reason that I think it's a good specialty to go into is that at the end of the day, serving women is good business practice. It's helped my practice to grow year after year after year. And that's because at the end of the day, women are the healthcare CEOs of the family, right? Who tends to take the kids to the doctor? Who uses more healthcare services? Women spend between 36 and 69% more than men on healthcare, depending on their age and the source of the data. Women use complementary and alternative medical providers more than men. Up to 80% of women with breast cancer use complementary and alternative medicine therapies to improve their quality of life during treatment. And women access preventative services more than men. So it's something I really enjoy, and there is a good business case for it, which is an important thing to study when you're deciding on your niche. So you can be a brilliant specialist in something that very, very few people need, which is completely fine, but it's not going to support you to have a successful practice. So that's again why there's a real distinction between being a specialist versus having a niche market that you serve. So imagine you live in a small town, not very accessible by an airport. You specialize in a very rare cancer, and there are only 100 people on the planet who have this. Well, that's fascinating and something that may be worth doing for many reasons. Maybe your child has that cancer, or your parents, or you. And there might be a good reason for you to be a specialist in that cancer, but you probably are not going to be able to develop a successful business, if there are very few people to serve in your area or even in the world. And I had a similar situation. One time I was working at a large academic medical center, and I had a lot of experience working with women who were had high risk pregnancy situations and were staying in the hospital for weeks or months, kind of being safely monitored to hopefully not deliver the baby until the baby was more developed. And I had a lot of experience with that. I came into this academic medical center to help them serve those women better, which was great, but they only had maybe 10 or less patients in that situation at any given time in the hospital. So it wasn't really a viable business to focus on. So you do have to consider that when you're choosing your niche market. You can be highly specialized in something that no one needs your help with, and that's not great for your practice. So if you are very interested in women's health, I strongly recommend, of course, developing your women's health skills, which is why I specifically designed the Women's Health Coach certification, because even if you are a health coach or even if you are a functional nutritionist, but if you want to work with a specific women's health population, you need to continue your education with specialty skills. So what this certification includes, first of all, it is the only one in the planet that is NCCHWC accredited, which means you can sit for the National Health Coach Certification exam. And it's the only one that specializes in women's health that is accredited. And again, I believe credentials are important. It establishes credibility and it helps your professionalism. And essentially, you'll be learning in this program master's degree level skills in health coaching, which includes behavior change, motivation, support, and master's degree and above level skills in functional nutrition, only through the lens of women. So when we talk about cardiovascular, cardiometabolic health, we talk about how that is for women. When we talk about immune disorders and immunity, autoimmunity, we talk about why women are more likely to have autoimmune disorders. We talk about hormones, which clearly is unique to women versus men and children. Everything we address, everything you'll be learning in functional nutrition will be through a lens of women's health. It's not, you won't be developing those generalist skills. Now, certainly you'll have foundational skills, which can be useful for anyone, but this is designed to help you go out and most expertly work with women, because women with cardiovascular disease, the research shows us, need different things from men with cardiovascular disease. So if you just generally learn cardiovascular functional nutrition, you won't be applying that appropriately necessarily in women's health populations, especially since the research often focuses first on men before women. And there are some bonuses. So that's the meat of the material, is the really high level training. But we also focus on having a very small class size. We only accept 30 students per year in our Women's Health Coach Certification program. In that, actually, there are two levels. You can just get that information and not be eligible to sit for the national exam, the NCCHWC exam, because that requires a little extra. But we only accept 30 students in each program. If you choose the program that is accredited, you will be eligible to sit for the very first 2017 NCCHWC National Health Coach Certification exam. And again, credentials matter to your professionalism, to your practice growth. Private mentoring with me and our other mentor coaches, if you choose the accredited program. You will also be a part of our professional mentorship and mastermind group coaching, which occurs, you'll have that through the whole rest of the year at no additional cost. You'll receive a free ticket to our December 2016 live event in New York City. The topic, I know we're developing all the details, but we'll be focusing on female athlete wellness at that live event and some other really fun things about practice development, self-care for professionals. I don't want anyone who graduates from my program to be burned out. We're going to be taking care of you the whole time. Bonus content on supporting women to prepare for and recover from surgery. 2 private mentoring calls with me to discuss your personal and professional vision and goals. So again, I want personal interaction with you. That's why we have a small class size. And we also maintain 2 private Facebook groups, one for the clinical questions and one for the professional and business development questions. So I hope you will consider joining us. There's the link where you can learn more about the program at integrativewomenshealthinstitute.com/professional-resources/WHC. If you go to integrativewomenshealthinstitute.com, you'll be able to find it fairly easily. So we have several people, actually quite a number of people on our call here. I hope you're enjoying this and learning a lot. Really starting to drill down on what you would like to specialize in and which niche market you would like to serve. And so I am available for another 5 or 10 minutes to take some questions. So if you have any questions, please type them into the question chat box below, and I will take them. I'm going to pause for one moment and drink some water, and I'll be right back to answer your questions. Well, good. Looks like I've been extremely clear. Does nobody have any questions? We do still have quite a number of you here, so don't be shy. Jump right in if there's anything that you would like to ask. Otherwise, I hope this gave you quite a bit of food for thought regarding your specialty area and the niche market that you would like to serve. All right. Well, if there are no questions, I will let you all get back to work doing the wonderful work that you're doing in health and wellness. And I look forward to seeing you in the program. I hope some of you will join us. I really believe this is one of the highest quality health coaching and functional nutrition trainings in the world. And it's the only one that focuses on looking specifically at women's health needs, which is a market that, while it is well served, certainly women have healthcare options. A lot of times, clinicians that are well trained and experienced in looking at women's issues, it's still underserved. Women in heart disease is still underserved. Women's hormonal issues are still underserved. Women, young female athletes, women in high schools, adolescents and high schools don't get great education about their nutrition and their development and their sports needs, how to consider all of those issues as they're growing. So there are many, many populations within the realm of women's health that need far more specialists to be better served. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And I will see you. Oh, let's see. We might have one question. Oh, thank you. And I will see you next week on our final webinar in this series, where we will be discussing a bit more about the National Accreditation Board and what that means. All right. Have a wonderful day. Bye.